Detroit speaking to many Democrats.
Fellow Democrats, I am aware that your presence here is due to curiosity. You are wondering what kind of an animal has been caught in the woods of Mecosta County to represent you in this campaign. Let me assure you that my curiosity as to the kind of Democrats in Wayne County equals yours.
My greatest asset was the loyal support of 20,000 ex-Ferris students scattered about the state, but still, I lost the election.
However, it was different in 1912. I decided to accept the nomination for governor if Woodrow Wilson was running for president that year and conditions were more favorable. I was elected by a plurality of slightly less than 25,000, but since I was only Democrat elected in the state ticket, and since both houses in the legislature were Republican, I had no opportunity to secure much constructive legislation. However, I was re-elected in 1914. The Republicans were courteous to me, but they never hesitated to ride roughshod over any vote I might choose to make.
In 1920, I ran again for governor. People were against the League of Nations, and all the Democrats, including me, went down in defeat.
In 1922, 3 Republicans were running in the primary against me in that election for the U.S. Senate. I did not, at any time in the campaign, entertain any hope of election. I was fortunate in having the complete support of the Detroit Evening News. My opponents mentioned my advanced age. I was in my late 60s. A Republican speaker mentioned that I had 1 foot in the grave. When I asked, whose grave? I was elected by a majority of 18,000.
Later accomplishments.
I was fortunate enough to be a 2-term governor of Michigan. During that time, I helped settle the copper strike of 1914, worked with labor management relations, and contributed wisely in settling state boundary disputes between Michigan and Ohio.
In 1923, I became a U.S. Senator from Michigan and served there until my death in 1928. Just prior to my death, I penned a speech in which I proposed the creation of the U.S. Department of Education 51 years before it was accomplished.
Here are a few remarks from my undelivered speech to the U.S. Senate. 1. Education has to do with the enrichment of life, and the enrichment of life depends upon productive thinking. 2. The very lifeblood of American democracy lies in the educational advantages which should be offered by the public schools. 3. Education begins with the first breath and ends with the last breath.
You know, Mr. Ferris wasn't such a weird guy after all.
Yeah, but now that we know all these facts and stuff, how do we get an A?
We can quote Mr. Ferris's famous sayings.
I think I've seen some of those at Bennigan's.
That's kind of ironic since we all know how much he hated alcohol. Rye whiskey, rye whiskey, rye whiskey, I
Hey guys, shut up. We're in the library. And your turn. Now, let's get back to work.
How could an old guy like that have anything important to say to students today?
Ferris said self-reliance, self-sacrifice, sobriety, and the truth are old-fashioned virtues that should be taught at home. And he also said there is no teacher who can take the place of a mother. That's right.
It sounds like Ferris favors the home over school.
No, that's not at all. Listen to this. Ferris said, a majority of college students are not readers. The American home is largely responsible for this condition. Hey, if Mr. Ferris were alive today, he'd say that television is responsible for this condition.
Listen to this. Ferris said, tardiness is an insult. He should pay my classes. Plenty of students come into classes late.
Did Ferris say anything about summer school?
He sure did. It says here, school should be conducted 12 months of the year.
Grown!
A medical bill living that long ago was against women's rights.
Hey, don't sell Ferris short. Here's what he thought. I want to remind you of your power. It is up to you to work along with the men. I am a radical advocate for the larger freedom of women. I would not see her shut out from a single occupation.
Old Mr. Ferris was really ahead of his time.
Yeah, we know that Ferris was a strong Democrat in Republican Mecosta County. Did he say anything about political parties?
Here it shows how he ragged on the Republicans. If a state is overwhelmingly dominated by one political party continuously, good government is in danger.
He isn't anti-government, though. Founding this school did kickstart him into a political career, and Ferris ended up as governor and U.S. Senator.
It seems he liked being in charge, whether it was running the school or the state.
So, do you think we have enough info? I'm feeling a little overeducated / brain fried right now, and I've got other things to do.
Well, as Ferris said, research is the mainspring of progress.
Yes, he also said, use education for sane living, not simply as a means of making money, and not as a means of escaping work, Jim.
Good point, I guess. So, now what?
How about this? Jim, you create a PowerPoint with the visuals we found, and yes, you can include the one-of-him address as long as you can explain it. Bill, you collect about 10 of our favorite quotes, and I'll put together the biography.
I think my favorite Ferris quote is, "The world is one big family. Time and distance have been annihilated. National isolation is a thing of the past."
Hey, I heard former President Clinton say that same thing on the news last night.
Ferris was a better guy than I thought he was. Now when I pass his statue on the quad, I'll have a little more respect for him.